Hi, David Moore, Equity Advantage, Robert Smith, Peregrine Private Capital, and here we are talking about age a little bit. And I'm thinking about, you ever seen those? Yeah, I had to pull my shirt down because have you ever seen those things that like pull your shirt down, keep it all clean? Because I look over, you're always so put together, and I'm untucked, and I look over, my shirt's up like this, and so I got to tuck that thing down because I don't have that deal to pull my tails down.
You got to batten. Hey. You're a boat guy. You got to batten things down, buddy. You got to batten it down.
Exactly. So with that said, age, right? So my dad always used to talk about, you get older, you get in the metallic age. You know what the metallic age is? You got silver in your hair, gold in your teeth, and lead in your ass. So you made a comment about the silver tsunami, and we've just gone through some hurricanes and stuff like that. So the silver tsunami is right in line with what we're sort of looking at right now. And would you care to, for the sake of our audience, explain what the silver tsunami is and sort of what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, we can easily segue into real estate that way. In our previous video, we mentioned the increasing popularity, perhaps desirability of alternative commercial real estate type, self-storage, senior living, that kind of thing. And the silver tsunami is the phenomenon of the aging of the population. Every day, day after day, we all get a little bit older. The aging process is inexorable. It doesn't matter if the economy is up, down, or sideways. It continues to move forward. And in the next 20 years, the population between, I think, age 65 and 85 is going to almost double. And so that should put tremendous pressure on senior living assets. And senior living assets, for obvious reasons, during the pandemic, there was an unofficial moratorium from a development standpoint. You come out of the pandemic, fast forward 3 years, demand has continued to increase for senior living assets, but there was a paucity or shortage of the assets to begin with. And now with Bidenflation and skyrocketing financing costs from a development standpoint, it's making it increasingly difficult for developers of senior living properties to keep up with demand. And so we think that offers investors an excellent opportunity, somewhat analogous to the multifamily sector in the immediate aftermath of the single-family home market crash, 2007, 2008, when you had a whole generation of never should have been owners going back to being renters, and there simply wasn't enough supply. And it took over a decade for supply to finally catch up with demand. And I think you could analogize to that and saying coming out of the pandemic and then the shortage being exacerbated by skyrocketing development costs, we have a similar situation where you have steadily increasing demand, but with supply lagging. So it might behoove investors to try to get out in front of that wave and capitalize on that opportunity. So, so we think it's a very attractive asset because of the aging of the population. As the population's getting older, the number of qualified caregivers, in-house caregivers, is supposed to fall from something like 5% down to 1%.
Wow.
So the population, our population is going to be less able to take care of older people in-house than they have historically. And because people are living longer as well, the people, the elderly that suffer from Alzheimer's and other types of memory impairment is supposed to grow dramatically, and that's obviously an aging condition that you can't care for, or it's very difficult to care for in place in the home, and that may also significantly increase the demand for senior housing. So you have lots of forces coming together at the same time that may very well create a strong and continuing demand for this commercial real estate property type. And it would behoove retail investors to look at that if they're in 1031 exchange, particularly via the medium of DST, because historically that hasn't been an asset that's been available to many people on an individual basis because of the necessary capitalization to buy into or buy a property like that, but it is available through, through the DST space.
Well, I think it's interesting your comments on the development, because you think about, as an exchange company, historically, Tom and I started the company in 91. We used to be able to do improvement exchanges, right? And improvement exchange, for those of you out there, if you don't know what it is, we basically only got the exchange period, 180 days to get a project. It doesn't have to be done, but to satisfy somebody's exchange value and equity requirements, right? We can't give it to them. We've got to be able to build it out and then transfer whatever's completed within that timeline to them. But we've sort of gotten to a point where, the time horizons just to get a shovel in the ground don't allow us to do it on the West Coast. If we're talking about Tennessee or Florida or Texas, someplace where they like stuff to be built, it's one thing, and you can get something done in that timeline. But here we got in Oregon, I jokingly say the People's Republic, our governors, I want 36,000 new buildings, properties built this year. Well, okay, well, get out of the way and let us build them, right? They don't do anything to help expedite the process. So it's sort of interesting, because you do have a lagging supply, and it's one of those things where it's not going to happen overnight. And I'm right now, it's interesting to me because, like in Lake Oswego, for example, some of our city councilors are all upset that this one project hasn't gotten started. Well, they promised us they were going to get it started. Well, have you looked at the world? Have you looked at who's going to finance the thing? Are they going to do it right now? What's possible to even have happen today? So it's really interesting. It all takes time. You can sort of sit back, and if we've been through it, you can sort of see things develop. But you've got to understand those timelines, and Obama talked about the shovel-ready stuff. Well, to get something shovel-ready today, it's just a long ways down the road where we live.
I don't think any of Obama's, quote, shovel-ready projects have yet been started, okay? So...
Well, I like the term, okay? So, I know what he was implying, and I'm not going to argue with you about that, because you're probably right. But it's just one of those things where it takes time and it takes money to build stuff. So even if our politicians deem they want to do these things, to your point, it still takes time and it takes money, and they've got to get out of the way to allow it to happen. So the demand issues that you're talking about are definitely something that everybody out there should note and understand, think about when you're looking at scarcity and value of things. What is going to drive value?
Therein, you're exactly right. Therein lies the opportunity for people in 1031 exchange moving into another property type. It's like, you need to look at the demand component and the supply component. And if you can find an area, and we think senior housing is one of that, senior living is one of those, where supply is very constrained from a cost standpoint, from a material standpoint, in terms of inflation, from a regulatory standpoint, but demand is steadily, inexorably increasing. There lies we think, a very good investment opportunity where you can take conditions that are otherwise disadvantageous to real estate and real estate ownership and turn that upside down and make it work for you in terms of potential valuation increases of existing properties in the face of that increasing demand.
And just for future context, we're once again talking, this is mid-August of 2023. So we're in a world where in some segments of the market, you've got eroding values, you've got a reduction in loan to value, and you've got increased cost of capital. So all those things are going to impact future development too, and just your ability to move assets. So with that said, David Moore, Equity Advantage, Robert Smith, Peregrine Private Capital. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Thank you.